I haven't touched my sketchbook in like 2 weeks now, and I'm really missing the feel of not only the paper, but using markers and everything. So I went ahead and sketched out this guy, and I did him in 2 different poses because I want to make a sketchbook spread. We're going to start off with the drawing on the left, and of course we're going to begin inking him. When I do start inking, I take it really super slow because I really wanted the face to look good. That was my main worry, that I was going to mess up the face, which is why I took way longer on it. Plus, my face isn't like right next to the book when I'm filming, so it's even harder to try and get the lines that I really want. Normally, if I'm off of screen, my face is like kissing the book to line it, but you know, I can't do that here, otherwise you just see my big fat head right on the screen, and then, you know, you're not watching my art, you're just watching my head. I did go ahead and use a 0.1 liner instead of a 0.3 liner, just because I felt like it was necessary to do that here. The pose is pretty small and on smaller paper, so I thought it would only make sense to use smaller liner, and then go ahead and give it, like, thickness in the lines with width variation and stuff where it needed to be. When I started the sketch out, it, of course, started with the face, and I really liked the way it came out. It just, like, it was very enticing, you get me? And then after that, I was like, yo, it would be so good if this dude was beefed up to all hell, and I was like, yeah, let's go ahead and do that. So from there, I took the face, and then I tried to make a pose that fit whatever was on the paper, because I didn't want to erase the face at all, and I was like, nah, we gotta make this work, because the magic isn't going to be there after if I try and erase everything. So I went ahead with this kind of pose where he's laying on a bed, and he's got kind of like his squishmallows behind him, and I was like, you know what, I kind of really enjoy this, and I should continue with this, and I ended up doing just that. I really like the way this pose came out. I feel like it's very anatomically correct, and I know that sounds like weird to compliment on for myself, but I usually don't get things anatomically correct, so this time I was like, you know what, bro, I'm pretty proud of myself here. For the character himself, I used black line art, right? So this way he kind of pushes through the piece, and he's kind of like the forefront of the paper. And the squishmallows ended up being like their liner color. So like for the frog, he's green, right? So I used the green liner. The bear is brown, so I used brown liner. And the dog, I did use black liner, but that's because it's a Dalmatian. There we go, the ones with the black spots on them. So it only made sense to do it in black too, but I feel like it fit kind of very well with the not only animal, but like the entire page. Finally, when I was done with this and happy with how the lining came out, I went ahead onto the second pose that I did on the next page and began lining that as well. I just had so much fun doing the first pose and how he looked and everything that I was like, I really want to draw him again. So that's when I ended up doing a spread of him instead of just the one drawing, which I kind of enjoy more because you get to really flush out the character. Especially because I'm very guilty of drawing a character on a piece of paper and then leaving them into the dust for the next however many years until I look back at old art and I'm like, oh wow, I should draw them again. So sometimes it's nice to, in the moment, just draw the character multiple times, because a lot of the times I won't come back to that character, and I feel like they kind of deserve that like spotlight, you know, like damn, you're already on this page, let me make you another page because you look pretty good, right? So like, why not do another version of you? So yeah. Oh, for this page I did the same thing as well. I did the character in black ink and then the squishmallow in the respective squishmallow color, you know? Finally, we get to the part that I've been salivating for. At this point, I've been drawing him and inking him, and I'm like, yo, if I don't get to color him right now, I'm gonna have to riot. So I finally get the markers out, I plan the color scheme, I was like, boom, this is it, we're gonna do this, because I was ready to go. I really wanted my guy blushed up. I'm talking about like dummy blush all across the face. I wanted it to be like he took a powder brush and then dipped it right in his blush powder and he slapped that shit all over his face. I needed it like that, right? That was the vision, and I was so happy that I did the vision because it just worked with it so well. I went ahead and put that blush in a bunch of different places to help kind of create depth within the skin tone, which I really like to do. I also like to work in smaller sections. I know a lot of people like to just lay down the entire flat of color first and then go on top and blend out. I feel like personally the best way to achieve a really smooth blend and make it look as good as possible, for me personally anyway, is to work in smaller sections, because that's where the ink is still wet, right? The wetter the ink on the page, the more easy it is to blend out on the character. So that's why whenever I go in with all these colors, even though they're pretty separate from each other in like tone, it's way easier to blend out because the ink is concentrated in one area and I'm not giving it that ability to dry down yet, you know what I'm saying? Then finally, when it dries down, everything looks nice and settled in place, but it doesn't look like it's too not blended together, you know what I mean? You can see where the respective colors are for their darker tones and their lighter tones, but it still looks blended out, which is what I'm always happy to have in my art. For the color scheme of this drawing, and like many, of course I have to use the element of pink somewhere in there, because I love pink to death. There's just something about the color that looks beautiful on all skin tones, on whether someone is a boy, a girl, anything in between. It just honestly, just chef's kiss. Pink looks good on everyone and anything, and I'm really having a great time drawing this color on my boy over here. He's just looking real smooth, real nice, you know what I mean? Now, for his hair, I really took a different approach, right? Because I never ever do color hair. It's just not in the forefront of my mind. It is fun and it's cool. It's just, you know what it is with me? I think, like, when I'm drawing it, I'm like, yo, how am I gonna match this onto the character? Because the way my brain works is, like, everything has to match for some reason. I don't know why that is, but here we are. So I was like, you know what? Since the outfit isn't a really big element in this piece today, let's bring out the hair a lot more, right? Because I felt like I was gonna do black hair on him, but I was like, it's like a little plain, right? So I was like, okay, let's not do that. I almost thought of blonde, but then I was like, I feel like the skin tone and the blonde hair just wouldn't mesh, right? So I was like, green. What about green? Because green complements the pink very nicely. And I was like, looks like my brain is finally being used at some point. So I was really happy with the way the hair came out. I used like 2 cool grays on the top part and then blended it out downwards too with some greens. So we have the 2 dark grays and it blends out to darker greens and then lighter greens to give that highlight look. And I really like the way that it came out, and honestly I should do that more often when it comes to color hair. As for the Squishmallows, like I said before, they are in their respective color, and I feel like it's perfect that they're in a different line art because they look so much softer than the character does. So it looks like he really is laying on stuffed animals. Next, of course, we start coloring the second pose, and I'll admit, when I was doing this pose originally, right, I was like, I don't know where to take this, but then I was like, yo, what if it's a scenario where someone's like, hey, can I hold your Squishmallow? And he squeezes his, and he's like, ew, no. I thought that would be, like, so funny. Like, he's just like, ew, no, you can't hold my Squishmallow. And from there, I went ahead and did his face in a kind of like a, not just completely disgusted, but kind of like a, like, I don't, like, no. Like, I thought that worked so well. For some reason, I never draw characters like that. Again, it's always happy characters, but it's, like, really nice to do something different, and it makes me laugh because, like, sometimes there are these traits in which you put in from people into characters. Like, this one would be a childish trait of his, right? Where he's like, no, you can't have my thing, you can't share with me, whatever, right? Which is, like, funny because when you're grown, you're like, no, yeah, sure, you could hold my Squishmallow or whatever, but he's just like, ew, no, fuck you. So that was really funny for me to do, and I honestly really liked that about him, because I usually, again, don't do characters who are selfish to a degree or just mean or whatever, so it's nice to have that change of pace. I really like the way he is holding the Squishmallow in particular. It's because the way it's squeezing the head kind of in like an aggressive manner, he's just like, like no. So I really like the way that that came out along with it, so I thought that that was a nice touch to the character. When I did this pose in particular, I didn't want to continue him downward, you get me? So like you see it kind of cuts off where the arms are and at the bottom of the Squishmallow. And I think the reason why I did that was I felt like it wasn't necessary to put the bottom part, you get me? I feel like the message came across as nicely as possible just from the top portion of the body. Sometimes less is more when it comes to artwork, I feel, and I usually do the opposite, right? I do more is more and keep going until it's the most, but this time I was like, you know what? We'll leave it like this, especially because the sketchbook spread had the other drawing in there, and it already looked very fleshed out and like a whole pose. So I think that it was nice to just have this as an additional pose for the character instead of just another whole kind of like torso thing going on. So I kind of like the way this came out as a result. Now, if there's one thing that I would have done for this drawing a little different was where the thicknesses of the tank top kind of thing going on. It was a little too thick, which made the ink from the marker pick up the ink from the liner, and it kind of made it look muddy in that area, and that upset me a little bit. But I was like, you know what? It happens. Next time I'll just make sure that it's much thinner in that area, so when I do go ahead and color it in, it doesn't ultimately look like that in the end. But overall, the whole drawing I think is still pretty good. I think my favorite part really is how the Squishmallow is colored and how the shadows look like it is being squeezed from that side, so I really like that part about it. I do think maybe I should have gone over the Squishmallow with the purple liner one more time, because I felt like it kind of got lost within the color. But even then, I'm glad it still looks soft and it translates through like it's a stuffed animal. So regardless, I'm pretty happy with that. In the end, this is the final product for that drawing. And overall, I really had so much fun just doing a sketchbook spread of a character that I really wanted to do, and I had so much fun doing it with the supplies I love using the most. So yeah, thanks so much for watching, and remember I love you. Bye!